who has joined us from all around the country. I'm up in Canada, Langley, BC here, and a few of our team are down in Portland and in and around. And Benji and Jenna, where are you guys calling in from, just so we can sort of put you on the map in our minds?
We are in Franklin, Tennessee.
All right. I love Franklin.
Yeah,
I'm like total country boy at heart. So.
Are you? Yeah, I was just up your way. I was at the Seattle Christian Musician Summit. Well, kind of that way.
Yes.
Over in Seattle. And so you guys have been getting a lot of rain, as expected.
Yes, we are, but that's what keeps our country nice, and or our province, anyways, nice and green. So so it's beautiful up here. So those of you who are listening in, believe it or not, this is the first time I've ever actually talked to Benji and Jenna. So I'm going to get to know them at the same time as many of you. I don't know how many listening in have heard you guys speak or teach. I'm sure many have heard your songs, and so this is just kind of like we're doing this real time. You're getting to know me and our world of PraiseCharts, and I've been listening to your music quite a bit this morning and just really enjoying it as it's kind of filling my office. And I love your heart. I love how you guys, sing together. I was just thinking as I'm sitting and listening to your songs about you guys as husband and wife, just joining together with this mission and heart. So yeah, looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, so we.
Awesome. Why don't you just to kind of give us a little bit of a start, give me a little bit of a context for, what's current in your lives. Where are you guys? Are you guys in your home, or what's kind of going on in this sort of week or day? Have you been going to some, I hear you were in Seattle just a few weeks ago, so just kind of give me sort of that, what's a day in the life of Benji and Jenna looking like right now for you guys?
Laundry.
I hear it.
I think that's every day, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We are. Benji writes every day. He usually has writing appointments every day, and then he teaches twice a week in the afternoon. He teaches at a university in Nashville called Trevecca. They have a program called National Praise and Worship Institute, and he teaches songwriting there a couple times a week. And so typically, I'm holding down the fort, and we have 4 kids. We have our recent addition about a year ago is a little girl from Africa. So I don't know if she's showing up in any of those pictures, but so we recently moved into a house the past couple months, and so we're just trying to get settled. And we're actually from Nashville, believe it or not. Like that's not very common around here, but
yeah.
I actually grew up in Franklin, and Benji's north of Hendersonville, so we're kind of coming back home in a way. So we're just, getting adjusted still, and day to day. He's writing, like I said, every day. I try to write 3 or 4 times a month, usually with him, and sometimes a third party. We sometimes need a third party just on the marital side of it.
Yeah. Man, we have so much to talk about, Jenna. We have so much to talk about. You're going to do marriage counseling for me, songwriting, counseling for me. I want it all. So I'm all good. In fact, we relate on many levels because, I work out of my home as well. We have a dispersed team of, our PraiseCharts people, but we all kind of work in environments that are comfortable to us. And I actually have an office environment that looks much like it would be right out of, Tennessee. Half my walls are covered in old barnwood and old bricks, and I have an old 40-year-old piano, an old leather couch, and a wooden desk, and I just love, and when I go to Nashville, I like to just drive through Franklin and just sort of soak in, history. It kind of feels like just the, the roots of life. So I'm very into that, and I don't know what the age, I'd like to know the age spread of your kids. Mine are 14, 15, 17, and 19. So I'm kind of right in that teenage world where, you know, they've got independent lives of themselves. And how about yours? What is the age spread of your kids? I can see a few of them there. I don't know how recent that picture is.
Yeah, while we're still in Buffalo.
We're the opposite way. We have 15, 13, 9, and 7.
Yep.
So we kind of go down. But, yeah, we're in the teenage years, too. That's awfully interesting.
Yes, I know. So I have to say, and I hope you don't mind if we just, you know, open kind of talking about this a little bit, because when I asked what's a day in the life of the Cowarts, and Jenna, you said laundry, and I just had this image come to my mind of, you know, you with the laundry basket. In fact, we have that a picture of that YouTube video. So I know this is not actually the song that we're trying to sort of really promote here, but if anybody wants to go to YouTube and do a little search on Benji and Jenna Cowart, you're inevitably going to come across this little video. And what I like about it, Benji, is that it's such like a real window into like this is our life, right? And so could you just give us a little bit of the story of, you know, how that happened? And anybody listening in, if you haven't seen this video, you definitely have to watch it. But I'm going to let Benji and Jenna just tell us a little about how this might reflect some of your songwriting heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I hear this conversation all the time about, and I feel like sometimes, and you'll just let me explain this when I say it, but I feel like sometimes Facebook is a lot like the Bible in the sense that we, like in the Bible, you'll have these highlight moments where God does this amazing thing, and there are years of life in between, but it's kind of like, and then 7 years passed.
Right.
And I feel like, so it's like, you know, a lot of times on Facebook, we post, you know, in the kindness of God, He's allowed some really cool things to happen. But honestly, like, there's a lot of the, you know, the quote unquote years in between where it's like, man, it's just like it is for everybody else. It's just getting up every day, and it's trying to be faithful in the mundane. You know, just I think the problem with Facebook and Twitter and all that is sometimes we definitely can paint our lives in unreal manners. And actually, I think just what everybody's doing is they're putting up the highlights. And so in a lot of ways, I mean, our life is, there's moments that are really cool. There's moments where, you know, like this last weekend I got to go and speak at a seminar, and there's moments where we get to do cool things musically, and there's just a lot more moments where it's, I'm trying to figure out how to be a better husband and help Jenna with there's just so much mundane in between, but it's all important. But figuring out how to be better parents to our kids, it's, you know, none of us have it all together. You just kind of keep going, getting up and kind of going, maybe I can do this a little better than I did it yesterday.
Yeah. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I did a webinar just like this with Paul Balash, and he mentioned you guys at the end, and that he knows you and just spoke very highly of you as songwriters and ministers. But anyways, I've really been noticing a theme as I've talked to different songwriters about how much people are fundamentally looking for that authenticity, that kind of realness in songs. And so, like, what you're sharing really sort of relates to the kinds of songs that we write and the you know, the approach that we take to it, that you don't picture yourself or put yourself on this kind of pedestal of, you know, the glorious glamour of living in Franklin, and, you know, how I mean, I'm sure there are many elements that are amazing, but so you're giving us a sense of, you know, the realness of life. Well, tell us a little more about that, the video, and just kind of what it was about and where it kind of stemmed from, because I love the story and the context of it.
Yeah, I'm the king of dad jokes, and so with my kids a lot of times, like, you know, you'll be, sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's not, but you're hearing pop songs on the radio and you're trying to sing it back, and they're, of course, my son and daughter, my two oldest, kind of rolling their eyes like, Dad, that is not how it goes. But on that song, a friend of mine had sent it to me because I'm a big, like, I just love things with great guitar tones. So initially he sent that the song to me, because there's just a great guitar solo. But when I heard it, like I was kind of like, man, this is a great song, really catchy. But but there was a part of me definitely that kind of, when I heard the, I'm going to marry her anyway in the original version, where something bowed up in me a little bit of going, okay, what in the world? And the cool thing is those guys, like in that whole process, the guys with the band Magic, he even says in the making of that song, there's a video out where he says, obviously, there was a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in the song. We would certainly want the Father's permission. So he was kind of, I think there might have been a joke in that song that a lot of people missed, where he's actually making fun of that guy as well.
Yeah.
But as an ad, I mean, I kind of, there's a little bit of that was serious. A lot more of it was just kind of, okay, I'm going to rewrite this song, and like every redneck dadism that I've ever heard of, I'll be cleaning my gun the first time she brings a boy in, and just all of that. I was like, I'm just going to channel all of this and put it in a response. And initially, kind of wrote a chorus, and I was like, well, let's, I'll go look at the verses, and there's so much storytelling in their version of the song that it was kind of easy just to translate the whole thing over and change the story a little bit. And had no idea, like literally I was like, hey, this is kind of funny, maybe I should put it up on YouTube. Had no idea that it would, I think it's up to like 16 million views. And,
oh my
again,
goodness,
like all that,
I didn't actually even realize that.
Yeah, like,
and there it is, right on the screen there. You're a superstar. Look at you.
Yeah, but if Weird Al Yankovic is a superstar, then something like that, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But and that was, I mean, honestly, even as a songwriter, there was part of me that's like, oh man, I hope this doesn't like peg me in. But what was kind of cool about it was that it did sort of unveil that, man, there's a lot of dads out there that are sort of tired of getting the Homer Simpson treatment that our modern society does so much, where it's like, okay, I'm tired of being, there was a lot of guys that kind of just bowed up around that song. They're like, yeah, that's my song for my daughter, and so I think we touched a nerve there, and I think that's part of the reason. Then obviously, probably the biggest thing that launched the whole thing was Justin Bieber's mom retweeted it, and like, I think like it's funny how certain people, man, she's talk about a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
But I think she has like some 300 million Twitter followers or something crazy like that.
Really.
And so it was a very fun ADD kind of moment. Jenna with the laundry basket, we just kind of thought it'd be funny to have her, like, you remember some of the old Disney movies and some of the old sitcoms where they might randomly break into song, and the mom would just kind of be doing her thing and pop in and sing a little bit and then move on along the way. I was like, why don't we do that and just sort of, because it's almost kind of creepy in a funny kind of way.
Yeah.
And so we just thought, well, why don't you just randomly, like you're just doing house chores, kind of walk through and jump in and sing a little bit and then just move along. And so it ended up that, and that's, we actually had that show. We did another parody just for like all of our friends. We were in Buffalo for 7 years, and we did a parody of the song that Florida Georgia Line wrote called Dirt, and we called it Snow. And so, of course, the laundry basket showed up in that as well. And so then people were like, what's with the laundry basket? Like, why does that show up and everything?
Well, Jenna, I must say, even though the image of you, just kind of floating in and out, maybe with the laundry basket, when I listen to you guys sing in your songs on your album, you have a powerful presence together, and really admire that, and kind of sense of strength, even in the, as you're conveying some of the normalcy to your lives, your down-home Franklin regular lives, that there's something powerful that you guys have when you come together in your songwriting and your singing, and I hope that you can share and convey some of that. And myself, like I was saying, I've got kids and I'm a husband and trying to figure out always how to be a better husband, and in the context of that, have a ministry and a job and my life to live out. So hey, do you mind if we transition just a little bit? I just wanted to take a bit of time to get some context of who you guys are, and because I think many of us, outside of your 16 million YouTube fans, we know you as songwriters, but haven't heard you as much perhaps as artists. Now I know you have a couple of albums that are out, but could we just talk about some of the songs that you have written that you haven't necessarily, cut on albums, but are more familiar to us? And I'm thinking, I was just kind of going through some of your songwriting and thinking about songs that we have promoted in PraiseCharts. Redeemed certainly was one that came to mind, recorded by Big Daddy Weave. So could you just give us a little bit of context? I have a couple songs like this that I just sort of wanted to ask. How has your songwriting world brought you into the context with some of these writers like the guys, the Weavers from Big Daddy Weave and Meredith Andrews and Jason Ingram and some of these songs, great songs that have really blessed the church. So give us a little context, even just about that story of Redeemed, where you fit into that.
Yeah, there's one other song that kind of led to basically another song that they recorded, and I only bring that up because it was one they did called The Only Name. And so I had been I was at my church in Buffalo just writing songs for our church, and I was at a point where I was sending songs to a friend of mine, Chad Segura, who's at Word, and just honestly was just sending him more at a place of going, hey, I would just love some feedback to keep writing better songs. I'd kind of at that point kind of let go of the whole Nashville songwriter dream thing, and just got to a place where I was finally content with just, hey, help me just write better songs for my church. Can you just give me some feedback? And so through The Only Name, that was the first one where he just kind of said, hey, I think we may want to do something with this, so I'd like to get you with Mike Weaver. And so Mike and I sat down. I was on one of my trips down to Nashville, and Mike and I had coffee, and it was kind of, we had both had some of the same pastors, some of the same ministry experiences, and just hit it off right away. And so when I went back up to Buffalo, he and I set up. So we wrote Redeemed over Skype. And it was one of those where we both were kind of, honestly, we were like counseling each other through our stories. He's been very open about walking through some issues with his weight and how that's affected his kind of his self-image. And for me, it was just some of the battles of just, we all have whatever that pet sin is. It's just that battle of going, okay, when am I going to wake up and this is not going to be a struggle? And so we kind of both brought that into the conversation, and just in counseling each other and talking about, we both came to the point of going, hey, at some point you either believe what Christ says about us or we don't. We either really actually take a look at Romans and go, okay, either this is true or it's not. And so we just wrote a song kind of built around that and said, we were both like, well, if this is important to us, then it's a song that's probably important to, if nothing else, I'll use it at my church. And so we just kind of wrote it, not really, both loving the song, but not having any idea if it was anything bigger than just for that moment.
Can you tell me any stories, because I'm sure the song has had a deep impact on a lot of people. Have you heard any stories that have kind of come back to you and really been encouraging to you as far as a song like that and just the kind of impact that it can have in people's lives and giving them kind of hope and perspective and a theology really of grace and redemption for their lives?
Yeah, my favorite story that I consistently hear is how it's being used in Celebrate Recovery environments.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot, which for me, I've always, just being around some of those environments, I always feel like that's probably to me a closer picture of what the church should look like, because I think a lot more people are struggling with just different things than anybody admits, but at least in that Celebrate Recovery room, you've got all the people who are just being honest about it.
Yeah.
And so hearing those stories meant a lot to me. Probably one of my favorites was hearing, and I'm not sure even who we heard it from, but a gentleman had gone to prison, had gotten saved in prison, and the first solo he ever sang with the prison choir was Redeemed. And those for me are those kind of stories where you go, okay, this is why we do what we do, and just to get to be a part of somebody else's story like that it's a pretty profound experience.
Wow, beautiful story. There's other songs that I was going to go to, but now I'm thinking I just want to keep moving along, and because I want to hear more of, and we want to talk about songwriting for the church and really giving you a chance to help us in that. I know, just wanted to let you know, for even myself, I'm a part of the songwriting and worship leading team, apart from all that I'm, involved in PraiseCharts. I love to be involved in worship in my own church, just like people listening in. And in fact, I'm going on a songwriting retreat, our second one as a church, on Thursday night. We're going to spend Friday and Saturday kind of holed up in a cabin about 5 or 6 hours away with 10 or 12 of us, and so I'm eager to hear, all that you have to to share, and just giving perspective about our church wanting to write songs, for our church really, and surely they may get heard and used by other churches, but it's really about kind of capturing a vision for our own local ministries. So, but just kind of paving our way into that, Jenna, I wouldn't mind if you would, pitch in here, because I'd love to hear your voice and the stories and perspectives that you have. I heard a phrase just a few minutes ago about that kind of, call it the Nashville songwriter dream, and I want to hear a little bit of perspective from you guys in your road towards actually, making a lifestyle out of being songwriters. And I'm sure it's been a road of some up and downs and some expectations that have been met or not met. Can you just give us a little perspective on that, how that road has been for you guys as a family and as a couple? What were your dreams, and how has it gone, like you expected or not like you expected?
Right. Well, I think the first thing that we always have to go to, and there's such a stigma here being in this town of, you always hear what's going on, especially if you're in the music side, of who's writing with who's producing who cut what song, and, oh, I hope they listen to my song, or, there's just all that kind of stuff, and you really have to work really hard to be removed from it, because you get into comparison, and you get into, oh, I'm not that good, and, it just can really, I think, crush you at times if you're not in the right frame of mind. And I know that when we did our other EP a few years ago, Letters to the Church at Buffalo, that was when we were in Buffalo, of course, and we were working with a guy here that was in Nashville that produced that. He was actually from Buffalo, but he lived in Nashville at the time. So in the process of that album, even, we knew that he had played it for people in town, and, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, I wonder if so-and-so might hear it. I wonder what they think, blah, 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 blah. And is anything going to happen? Will anybody want to do anything with it? All this stuff. And we always have to come back to, especially when we were at our church in Buffalo, if these people that we sing before each week, if they're the only people that ever hear this album and they like it, then that's enough. Like, that's all that matters. Like, these are the people that we lead day in, a week in, week out. And those are the people who matter the most in as far as that opinion stuff goes. So I think even now, we're not at a church full-time here. We're helping out a church a couple of times a month in town, but we're not fully on staff, anywhere. And so it's just something that we still have to fight against, at least I do, of just, worrying about what people think here and getting people's approval. And you have to remember who you're standing in front of each week and what their stories are and why you may have written a song based on something they told you or based on their salvation experience or their testimony. And those are the things I think you have to stay focused on. If you stay focused on the small things, then God can expand it from there. That's where I go to.
No, it's really good. We want to continue to talk about specifically on writing songs for the church and that heart, and I do have a few questions that I want to kind of go through as we, because I'm thinking most people who are listening in on this, probably most of us are not, writing in the Christian music industry. We're thinking, well, what about my church? What about me and and the people that are singing, in my congregation from week to week? We don't want to just be doing top 100 CCLI or whatever. We got some personal, circumstantial or contextual things going on in our ministry that we want to bring songs that reflect our hearts. So I'm going to ask a few questions here that I've kind of prepared together with you, and then the two of you can just share your perspectives on each one as I do that. So is that okay? Can we proceed with a couple of questions like this that'll really sort of give people some focused, tangible tools for this? So just to start, how is writing different worship songs for congregational worship? How is it different, writing songs for congregational worship versus writing for Christian entertainment? What's your perspective on that, just to begin?
Yeah, there are definitely. I'm going to throw out kind of a crude. It was a kind of a crude picture, but it really is. It's the same thing as when you see the show So You Think You Can Dance. For those who've actually seen it, I feel like the people who choreograph those dances, you're choreographing for a highly, highly, highly skilled person. So the whole range of what you can ask them to do is very different. Mm-hmm. Whereas whoever, and again, what I'm not getting at is dumbing things down. I'll explain more. But when I think of whoever was brilliant enough to come up with the electric slide that everybody and their brother has done at a wedding at some point. And so now the problem is there's nothing beautiful about the electric slide, because I believe that songs do have to be crafted in a way that are a little more accessible. And the term I use is you've got to serve those people. This isn't about selling out or trying to write a worship hit. But like at our church in Buffalo, we served guys who were, it was a very blue-collar city. And so I may have my certain preferences on what I think is cool music or what I think is a much better, I prefer to sing things with big ranges, but I've got to to serve them, I kind of got to die to that a little bit. So you definitely have to think in terms of, you definitely have to think about range. Sometimes your range definitely needs to be a little more small. That doesn't mean you cannot write beautiful melodies within a smaller range. Mm-hmm. It's just, but you have to think about that when you're thinking about, singability. Mm-hmm. When you're thinking about Sunday morning, for most guys, honestly, they're in most churches. Now, there's always exceptions, but in a lot of churches, to get a guy to sing higher than a middle E flat or a middle E, you're going to be really pushing it on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Now, there's, the counter to that is we all grew up, anyone my age grew up listening to Journey songs, trying to sing what Steve Perry sang, even though we couldn't because the melodies were so good. Yeah. So there's a tension somewhere between. You've got to, there's what you cannot do. I feel like one of the main distinctives in writing for church that, I was just listening to an interview this morning about a song that a guy, they're trying to get him to talk about the meaning. This is a secular writer. And he said, well, it can mean whatever you want it to mean. You do not have that luxury in writing for the church. Right. Because we've got to be pretty straightforward, because we're dealing with doctrinal issues. So you can't be hiding things, especially when it comes to doctrinal issues. We can't hide things in vagueness. We've got to kind of be pretty straightforward with it and make sure that people understand that what we're singing is running on the rails of doctrine. The lyrics have to be, I feel like I got a hold of a Isaac Watts kind of book on, it's his lyrics, but then there's a guy that did a hymn writing thing, and it was pretty brilliant. But he's just even the things of the songs, they don't necessarily have to be in such plain speech that it's that's so dumbed down that it's just bad use of English language, but it does need to be conversational poetry a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. We don't get into super flowery things or super it's where it's just so artsy that nobody understands what you're saying. Because great songs do that thing where they someone can find themselves. I feel like great congregational songs also allow the singer to kind of go, okay, yeah, me too. I feel that way, and I want to sing this back to God as a response. So those are some of those. Sorry, I teach this stuff, so I can go a long time on just kind of.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just thinking as I'm listening to you that there's a real opportunity for people. When you think about writing songs for the church, some people are trying to write songs for like the worldwide church. You know, they're trying to write them How Great Is Our God. But some people are actually thinking, I want to write songs for my church. And there's a real opportunity that people have to know your church. Are you a church of 50 people in a little gym and all you have is acoustic guitar, or are you a church of 5,000 with this powered super system and, you know, this sort of mass crowd kind of, like all of that can affect how high you can sing, how boldly, how strong, even, you know, perhaps some theological themes. There's opportunities to know your church and to write into that. So, like, I agree about your E flat and E and, you know, D, but those aren't really hard fixed rules because some churches might have a context where they could, you know, in particular songs reach beyond that. Some churches, and most churches, let's be honest, are under 100 people with, you know, with sound systems that have duct tape and baling wire holding them together. I mean, I used to lead worship, and one morning my sound system literally smoked, you know, that Sunday morning. It was just like, can you imagine getting ready for Sunday worship and smoke is coming out of your sound system? So maybe most of us are beyond that, but yeah, just really kind of feeling that hard about it's okay to, you know, maybe to write as your first heart, your first love. Think about the people that you know, the people that you're serving, and then maybe some of those songs will reach beyond. But have your eyes on like real people, real context that we're in for writing for the church.
Yeah, well, I'm quoting somebody, but they said, I can't remember who it was, but they said if you write a song with really one person's story in mind, there's a good chance you'll write something that a lot of people can relate to. But if you try to write a song that everybody can relate to, you'll probably write something that nobody relates to. And I feel like that's the trap of writing these big stadium songs. It's like I'm going to write the next Passion song.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a trap because you know I think more of, okay, who's the lady in your church on the front row that shows up every week and she's faithful, and it feels like most of her life she's gotten kicked in the face, and yet she keeps getting back up and she keeps coming to serve God. And for me, I go, that's who I want to look at and go, okay, what's the prayer? Jenny Riddle says all the time, we're writing prayers to put on the lips of the bride of Christ. And so looking at her and going, okay, what can I provide that she may want to or need to pray this morning?
Right. You know, Benji, I know that's kind of a quote from someone else, but you've added to it, and I think what you've just said is incredibly profound. It's almost like that's the golden nugget of our time here this morning is write for one person and then, you know, let the song reach out beyond that. But if we focus on writing for this mass of people, you know, we're possibly going to miss it. So I really like that. Thank you. It's good. Can I move on? Maybe Jenna, you can start out with this next one, and Benji, I'm sure you can fill in as well. But what types of filters do you use when you're writing songs for the church? It's another question that I had. Do you have filters in?
Well, he kind of mentioned a couple of those. I mean, doctrinally, of course, you want to be on the right track. Singability is always important to me. Benji's more lyric, and I tend to err on the side of strength and melody and singing. And so I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff, you know, and it takes experimenting too. Like, one week you could try a song with a guy leading and it not work, but the next week, what if a girl led it and it did? Like, sometimes it just depends on how it falls with the people, and we try to experiment with that. And I think that's, for me, I'm always fighting for the girl to not always be singing harmony.
Good for you.
And so that's why I will try to speak up a lot just because, and sometimes even some of our songs we split where we put it in a key that it works for him to be able to sing and me be able to sing melody, and then we split, you know, and do harmonies. So I just think it's important, and, you know, a lot of older men who have lower voices, like I tend to watch the men a lot in worship, and a lot of older men, you got to give them a chance to sing too. I mean, not everybody can sing Chris Tomlin, so it's like you've got to give people a chance to connect. That's why I think as much as we are doing great new music, we still got to keep some of these hymns and some of these things that people can grab to, you know, within a service to give them a chance to sing. We just were at a huge Baptist church this past week, big choir, big orchestra, and I can't tell you the last time, you know, we were in that kind of environment, but it was so refreshing too. So I'm just a big proponent of watching people and giving them a chance to respond, and what are those songs that they respond to well, and what are those songs that we can write that are like that they can still respond to well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Benji, do you have some other thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, and this is definitely, I know some folks, I was kind of reading the chat line, just some of the very specific filters that I use. And I think one of the most honest ones, if we can put aside our agenda of, well, I need to lead it because I wrote it. But for me, one of the filters, especially when I'm writing with people here in Nashville, is would I lead this? Would I lead this at my church? And if I'm real honest, sometimes there's a lot of worship songs I've written where I'm like, nah, I probably wouldn't. I think another filter sometimes when I'm writing is, especially when I was, we still lead worship, but when I was full-time at my church in Buffalo, one of my filters a lot of the times was, okay, is this a song, am I trying to say what Matt Redman's already saying much better than I will in 10,000 Reasons? Because if it is, there's no point for me to try to write that. There's a better version that will serve our people better. And, yeah, that means I have to die to my own little agenda. But the other side, the benefit of song ideas that comes from that is, okay, but what song, because a lot of the songs I wrote for my church were just songs I wish somebody else had written and they just hadn't yet. So I was like, well, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. There's so many good songs that come from that place of just going, boy, our pastor just landed at this point in his message, I wish we had this song and we don't have it. Well, I feel like for your local church, you're the person to write it. Or if there's a moment right now where, you know, if you've got somebody that just, you know, God just healed them of cancer and you don't feel like you have that song yet, and it doesn't mean the song even has to have the word cancer in it. Like, you don't have to write it so specific that it narrows anybody out of the story, but you can still write it in such a way that everybody in that church knows what you're talking about and really celebrating, because a lot of times we don't celebrate the victories in our churches. I feel like that's part of what we do as songwriters is we're also church historians. And so at your local church, that doesn't require that the song be a national song. It just requires that you write it for your church and capture the moment and the story that God's telling right now in your little church.
Hey, as we're continuing to talk here, I've got some questions that are coming in from people. I know on the side chat there's lots of questions coming, as well as people clicking on that top button, and I encourage you to do that. We're going to spend the next little while continuing to dig into some of the practicalities of songwriting here with Benji and Jenna. So someone was asking there about writer's block and just, you know, when you sit down at the keyboard or guitar and you just can't come out with something. Have you guys ever experienced that yourselves? How do you navigate through writer's block?
I'll let Jenna go first, then I'm going to hit you with just a list of things. So.
Well, I personally,
awesome.
like, I'll say to Benji sometimes, I'm like, I don't know how you do this every day, like, and it feel fresh, you know.
Yeah.
I am a thinker, and I have to step away, like, and sometimes, you know, like I have learned what my position is when we do write with a third person. Like, I will stay quiet for a lot of the beginning because I have learned what my strengths are, and some of that, people that are writers that are listening, I used to feel very forced, like I was forcing something, and then I just began to be quiet and figure out, what I can contribute and when. I am still afraid at times to spit out something because you are afraid it's going to be a dumb idea or it'll get shot down. And sometimes it does, but, I've just learned where my strengths are, and so I will try to follow the process as it's going on in the room, and I have to wait sometimes until the idea is being formed more until I can chip in and get a clear picture of where I think the song should go. But sometimes if we don't finish a song, like it's good for me to step away and have time to think about it without other people talking in the room.
Right.
And so, that's kind of writer's block, I guess, in a live version, a live situation. But sometimes it's good to just step away, and what you think was such an amazing idea may need to be, revisited, and and not be discouraged by the fact that, oh, we didn't finish that. Well, there are many, many songs that take several. I mean, when I've heard writers speak about some of the songs they've written of meeting, 5+ times until they finally got it right, So it's not like some songs do get spit out within one session and some don't, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be ready for this barrage of thoughts.
I'm ready. Pour it on.
So songwriting, for me in songwriting, momentum for me is everything. So I'm just going to throw some things. These are for songwriters these are just, to me, things I know have worked for me. They may not work for you, but I think probably at least one of them will. One, there are things you can do. Some of my most productive song solving is at the lawnmower. Sometimes you need to step away. You can, obviously, if I'm in a three-hour co-write, I can't do this. But for those of you who are just writing on your own, it's amazing the problems your brain will solve when it's in passive mode. Mm-hmm. So sometimes getting behind a lawnmower or going to do laundry or going to do, it's amazing when your body starts doing something physically, your mind will relax and start solving problems. So that's one of them.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Another thing I do when I'm running into a lyric problem is we do this all the time in songwriting, is I'll say, okay, the big idea of what I'm wanting to communicate in this song, how would I pray this over my congregation? Or how would I pray this to God? You would be amazed at how when you just sincerely take a moment to pray, and it's really not, you're actually praying. It's not like you're just synthesizing a prayer. But you will spit out such great, honest lyrics from that place instead of trying to be all smart and clever. Mm-hmm. So that's one that we do a lot. A lot of the times I will actually just start, if I'm looking for a melody, I've done this before, is if you take your scale of 1 through 8, if you kind of put on a number system, I've even at times will just start laying out numbers randomly and then play that on the piano. So if I lay out, the number, if it's in the key of C, your 1 is your C. So if somebody threw out a 1, 7, 2, 5, then it would be C to B, D to G. Sometimes those melodies will give you great ideas, and all of a sudden the thing will sort of take off in your mind. I read all the time, so I'm always looking for lyric ideas when I'm reading, in conversations. A lot of the times if you're stuck, I will never spend 30 minutes getting stuck on a word. So one thing you can do is if you kind of know what, a lot of times it's okay to move to another part of the song for a while. So if you're stuck on a word in the first verse, if you exhaust yourself there, I just feel like there's no point in doing that because that word will come. You may just need to go do something else for a while.
Mow the lawn. Go mow the lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Or jump to another part of the song. I've even at other times just gone and started writing a completely different song. But the solution for the first song will come out of nowhere while I'm working on the second song. What you don't need to do is feel like... I just wanted
to park there for a second because you mentioned this idea of the passive mode of the brain. I'm sure that, scientists have done studies on all of that, but it's just I haven't really thought about that before, and I think that's a really important consideration for songwriters, is to recognize the strength of not focusing on something to allow your creative, juices to flow and actually solve the thing you're not thinking about, right? I just think that's really profound. It's good.
Yeah, it's what you think about, the places, think about when you're doing something physical and you're working, or even when you're in the grocery store and all of a sudden you just start humming a melody.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's one of the purest places that music comes from. Music, I mean, it's almost hard, even though we have to work at it. Music in and of itself is it feels like a non-laboring thing, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
So sometimes you've got to take yourself out of that, like just beating yourself over the head to try to get something, and put yourself back in that just, Jason Ingram says this all the time. One of the first thing he does when he gets up is he spends the first 15 minutes, and whatever that, sometimes you wake up and that thing is right on the tip. There's something on your mind or something, a song going through your head, and it's like you're kind of going, I don't know if I've ever heard this song before. But that's that place in the brain where you're made to make music. Mm-hmm. And so you just go ahead and record even that little piece. You don't have to chase the song, but in those moments where you get that intuitive melody going through your head, make sure you record that on your phone, because later that's just coming from the right place to where a lot of good music comes from.
Yeah.
I'm thinking as well that oftentimes, let's say you're in a grocery store lineup, or you're in the shower, or wherever you are, and you're not really in songwriting mode, but that thought or melody comes to you, you've really got to find some kind of system or way, or we've all got the phones or whatever to capture those things, because if you don't, I don't know if I've certainly found this, where I've had those thoughts, and then I think, I'll just kind of come back to it later, but then I've lost it, So do you find that for yourself, that you've got to somehow capture it, write it down, record it, open up, your phone little app there, and put something in place that captures it in the most awkward of, life circumstances wherever you are, or how do you make sure you don't forget it?
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I don't know if it's age or what, but I have to record.
Yeah.
I can't remember, and I'm a pretty good melody. I can remember a melody once it sticks pretty well, but like sometimes it'll happen. It happened to me Sunday when we were singing at that church. It was during a prayer time, and the band was just kind of playing, underneath, and I was humming stuff, but it's not like I could run off the stage and get my phone, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but I know I liked it in the moment. It's like that happens to me a lot, like at the end of a service, if the pastor is, praying or about to release the congregation, and sometimes, somebody's playing keyboard or guitar. I've done that before, where I've hummed something into my phone because I know I'm not going to remember, and then I'll revisit it because I'll gosh, I don't think that sounded familiar, but you want to check yourself, but it felt good, but
yeah.
I just can't remember everything, so.
Yeah. Hey, Benji and Jenna, I know you guys, you teach on some of this stuff, so you've got lots of, points and things to, tangible things, and I think some people are really continuing to look for that this morning. So I know, Benji, you had more points to bring us, and we can certainly come back to that, but this one question is kind of pressing. People are saying, what are some of the exercises you have your students do to improve their lyrics or melodies, progressions, things like that? Are there some tangibles that you actually give to some of your students, people that you're teaching, to say, here's some specifics of what you can do to sort of keep that train moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, some of the assignments, so one of the lyric assignments that I will give out, and these things, they don't seem important, but they really are. Like I will say, hey, I want you to write, I need 3 verses, and I need the syllable count on each line to be exactly the same. I need your rhyme structure. And sometimes, again, it's just the exercise, so I'm not looking for them to write a hit song. But the discipline of counting syllables and understanding that for the reason that's important is not because it's a rule, The reason it's important is because so as soon as you begin to set a rhyme scheme, the person who's singing the song, their brain begins to check things off, and the rhyme satisfies them. So now it's one thing if you do break the rule, you have to do it so well that everybody in the room knows you did it. So I don't mind breaking the rules. They're just rules, and they're not biblical rules. They're just rules that we've agreed on as humans. As this is what a song is. So, but otherwise, if we're singing something and I say something about, grace, and I know that the next line should rhyme, it's because we don't want distractions in our worship songs. That's really why we even play with these rules, is that we just want to create something that doesn't give people distraction. Is if you don't rhyme it, there's a little moment where you can take them out of the song. So syllable count, I will have them say, hey, this time I want an A-B structure, which means I want the rhyme of line 1 and line 3 to be the same, and I want the rhyme of line 2 and line 4 to be the same. Melody-wise, one of the exercises I've given, which I think is just a great exercise for worship writers, is write a song where the verses and choruses feel immensely different, but you only use an octave. You're only allowed to use an octave to write both verse and chorus, just because it gets you used to, it's like if I could paint something on a canvas, and then Picasso could paint something on a canvas, and we would get two very different things within those boundaries. But Picasso's still a brilliant artist, so I think sometimes having to paint within boundaries actually makes you a better, more creative person. So just little things like that. And another thing that's very helpful is to actually download karaoke tracks of worship songs. And just from there, again, you don't want to try to steal somebody else's song or rewrite their song, but sometimes writing within the formatted structure of already pre-existing songs, so you write your own melody and your own lyric, but with that chord bed, it makes you pay attention to how many lyrics you can put in the verse, how many lyrics you can put in the chorus, because sometimes with new writers, it's almost like they're just writing this unending journal entry in their song, which is fine for a song between them and God, but that is very hard for a congregation to sing. Is this the kind of thing you're asking for?
It totally is. What I'm picturing here is, if someone was going to ask you, how do I become a better musician, you're going to tell them, well, you got to practice your scales and do your triads and, all that stuff that I did when I was 6 years old till I was 15, and I didn't really enjoy it, but now I can sit down at the piano and play music and make melodies and songs, just out of my heart, but it kind of goes back to those early years, and I guess songwriters have to do that even with lyrics and with melodies. You find boundaries, like a scale, for example, it's a fixed boundary of you got to do this, and it might not be what the end product is. Nobody's going to go and perform a scale, but there is the hard work of exercising our brains within boundaries, and then that can produce for itself greater confidence and a greater flow. So maybe sometimes the writer's block, quote unquote, I can't think of a melody, I can't think of a chord structure or lyrics. Maybe some of it is you have to dial back into the quote unquote scales of songwriting, do some of the work, some of the exercises, and building up your songwriting muscles, right? So that's what I'm hearing you saying.
Yeah, and the best honestly, that I don't know any songwriter who would not say the same thing, that it's going to just be prepared to write at least 200 songs that aren't good before you write your first good one.
Right.
My buddy Chad Keats, he says the 200 bad songs are the vehicle you have to ride in to get to your first song, your first good one. And so it's just, beyond all that, it's just the repetition of going, and the repetition of finishing songs. Just even if it's like this isn't probably going to go anywhere, just finish it anyway. Because the thing is you put in the reps, so that when you really do get the great big idea, now you're prepared to execute it. And you wouldn't be there if you hadn't gone through the 200 executions of really not the great big idea.
Yeah. I know I pay a lot of attention to songs that are coming out, especially for the church. And you think of these big songwriter artists like, Jason Ingram or Tomlin or Matt Redman, and I think even those guys, even today, are writing songs that end up not going very far, just because it was written by Chris Tomlin. Even today, he has to still write a lot of songs, and there are diamonds that float to the surface out of a wide. I'm sure in that whole world they're constantly writing with new groups of people. You guys are swirling around Nashville and Skype, and this is how that songwriting world works. And out of that context, diamonds or whatever, float to the surface. And It doesn't mean, I guess, the other songs are bad, but not every song is going to be a hit, right? And a hit in the context of a church might mean not every song you write will actually even be sung by your local congregation. That's like the level of that would be equivalent to radio play, you might say, is, are other people going to sing this song? Well, probably not all of them, but you got to write a number of songs. So that was good. Questions keep pouring in. So we have, oh my goodness, we only have like a few minutes left, and we haven't even really gotten to your album. So I did want to. Why don't we do that? It's just, I don't want to not give your own album and the songs that you guys have poured into a little bit of attention here, but certainly people can go into PraiseCharts and just do a search for Benji and Jenna Cowart, and you can see on the screen there we have all the songs from your latest album called Surrender. But maybe could you just give us a little bit of a flyby tour through those songs? We've got the lyrics of some of them, and maybe there's a few that you would just want to highlight for us. Give us a little bit of the backstory of how that has come about, because this is really you, not just as songwriters, but also as singers and performers and leaders, artists, I guess you might say. So give us a little bit of a tour through this project that's just come fresh.
Yeah, just with each kind of, let's see, just kind of thinking through the song, I'll just kind of think as they come to my head. We started with Always More. I wrote that with Corey Voss and Dwayne Laring, and really the big idea behind that song was something I've been chewing on. One, as a songwriter, of the lie that, hey, everything that's been said about God has been said. And I started just going, wait a minute, if God's infinite, like we will never run out of things to say. And then, but also just even in the way God provides, it's like, well, he has cattle on 1,000 hills, and if you ran out of cattle, he would just make more. Mm-hmm. So when you begin to really get your mind around that, we just kind of wrote that. All three of us were in a place where we really just kind of, just those places where you're like, okay, I know God will provide, but I'll be really interested to see how that happens. And it was just it was cool to just voice this prayer of just, it will always be there. With All I Want Is Jesus, that was a song that Jonathan Lee, we were on a songwriting retreat together, and he had brought up this chorus, and I just loved it immediately. And so we just kind of filled in the blanks. And basically the big idea of that is that when we finally get to a right place, we begin to realize that the things that we're chasing, we think we want, are just bad substitutions for who Jesus is, and that it really is him that we want, and sometimes we just don't know it. And so we kind of just built that around that. Is there any song specifically? I don't want to.
Yeah, Jenna, what's a song that would just be like, what's one highlight song that just comes to your mind from this project?
Surrender is one for me. We've had that song for a while, just because I think it's a daily thing of having to do that in every moment of whatever you're up against, and just whatever life is handing, and that one, and the As I Am song is ended up being a song about our adopted daughter, and so even though it's not a worship song, it's kind of still, this whole album is called Surrender just because there's that theme almost through every song. Our process with her was nothing but that. And so those two are probably, Always More is definitely one of my favorites as far as just, I feel like it's just a great singable song, just a worshipful moment. But those are the top ones for me, probably.
It is truly, I was just captivated by that one this morning, listening to it, and love it. Really enjoy your heart, and enjoy that you guys have shared this time with me together, and that you guys are, that you're doing life together, marriage together, family, and out of that, ministry is growing out of that. And I appreciate that you don't, you're not glamorizing, the life. There's the hard work of songwriting, and there's still the hard work of pressing through, like you were saying in the beginning, Benji, that in between, the mountain peaks oftentimes in the Bible is 7, 10, 50, or then 100 years past even.
Yeah.
And that's just the stuff of life that songs grow out of that. But I just really believe, and I had said this earlier on, and I continue to want to say this message to people, is that what congregations need and what they're looking for is something authentic and something that's real, and and certainly embedded in Scripture. But there's something about our human nature that is fundamentally not actually attracted to just the glamour, the glitz, the fake celebration that the Facebook highlight kind of thing. I even find myself, I'm personally in a bit of a Facebook. I post every now and then, but I just can't wake up every morning and go and see how awesome everybody's doing, because I'm like, well, my life just isn't always like that, and isn't the reality that we're all like that. So anyways, just want to encourage people as they're listening that be real, be authentic, and let your songwriting heart kind of grow out of that in your relationship for God. So
if there's anybody that had a specific question that we couldn't get to, you can always email us on our Facebook music page. We have a Benji and Jenna Cowart music page. So if that helps, if we didn't get to it.
That does. And just to sort of as a reminder for everyone, we've recorded this whole webinar, and oftentimes Charlene is taking notes and writing up a little blog post that puts some of these points and questions and answers into a written form. And as well, certainly if people want to email to us as well, just info@praisecharts.com, and we'll forward some of those to you. We can tag some of those into the webinar. It's just, I'm always challenged because when I meet a couple like you, for example, it takes me a little bit of time to get to know who you are, right? And I'm like, I always want to ask, so where are you? What's going on in your lives? How many kids do you have? And all of that. And because I'm not just your classic Oprah Winfrey, interviewer. I'm like a real worship leader, songwriter myself. I want to learn from you even as I'm listening. And like I had said, I'm going on a songwriting retreat on the weekend, so I'm just looking for stuff to be encouraged by. But people have been great. I appreciate everybody who's listened in. The chat side seems to have, there's been lots of murmuring, and I do hear when people are like, let's get to some tangibles, some practicals, teach me how to do this thing. So I hope that we have gotten there in some ways today, and we just want to be an encouragement to people writing songs. So thank you, Benji and Jenna. Has this been a good time for you? I hope you feel encouraged by us and our audience, and we're like supporting you guys in your music and songwriting and trying to help your songs get out to the church. So I hope you're encouraged by all the people that have come along and listened today.
Well, just to be a fanboy, it's kind of a weird place to be getting to do an interview with y'all, because we've been utilizing PraiseCharts for a long time. So it's a
really
kindnesses of God to get to do this and go, what am I doing on this thing when I've been the one for so long using charts and that kind of thing. So this has been very cool.
I'm a fan of you, you're a fan of me, and we'll just kind of call it even. How about that? So that's great. Hey, listen, oftentimes what I do at the end of webinars is give the guests an opportunity to pray for us. So Benji, do you mind if I just ask you to do that? For those of us who are just still listening in, at the end of this hour, would you pray for us just gathering up some of, the heart of what we've talked about today, and pray that that right spirit and the helpful spirit that would support us as we try to write in ways that are authentic and real and deeply rooted in Scripture. So I just want to give you a moment to do that, and then we'll kind of close out from there. Is that okay?
Yep,
okay,
be glad to.
Yeah.
Father, thank you. Thank you for this time, and just thank you, Lord. I'm so grateful for all the people out there just writing songs, and Lord, I pray that just you would help them understand how much it really does matter, and that you see every bit of it, Lord. I know that I've been in places where I wondered if you saw me or if anybody saw me, and you do. You see every minute. You see every second. Lord, just the fact that you made them to write songs and they do it is the creation pleasing the Creator. So even in that process of writing 200 bad songs, you were so happy about that, simply because they're doing what you've made them to do. So, Father, help none of us to forget how important this is, and that songs, they really do change things, and you've given it to us, and it's something that you allow us to be made in your image and be little creators, and I pray that we would do that with great joy and with just giving that back to you as our gift. Just thank you for who you are. Thank you for a chance just to get to talk about your kindness in our lives. Yeah. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, Benji, Jenna. The Lord bless you guys in your marriage and your family, and just pressing on in your ministry and songwriting, and we'll certainly do our best to help spread the word about these great songs that you've brought. So thanks for this time that you shared with us.
Thank you.
All right.
Let us know when you're in Franklin again.
Okay. Okay. See you then. Okay.
Bye.
Bye then. All right. So just to kind of wrap things up.